Thank you for joining us on another episode of Popcorn for Breakfast. With me, as always, your co-host, Kirk.
Hello, hello.
Surrounded by a circle of knives.
That's
Very
right.
Nice. Very nice green screen work tonight, Kirk. I respect the hustle.
Thank you.
I'm your other co-host, Cam, and we are here to review a film. To review a film in a manner that we haven't done as much, which is spoiler-free. And that film is called Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. Hence the knives around Kirk's head. And that's from the first movie.
That's right. Or is it from the second one? You won't know because we're not going to spoil it for you. It might be in there. It might not. You'll never know.
It's in the first movie.
Spoiler alert.
No, that is not. It's not a spoiler. It's not a spoiler.
We're not indicating if it's also in the second one, Cam.
But people know, right, that this isn't... It's a sequel, but it's not a continuation of the same story.
But it's a possibility that we cannot expose to them.
We have to say some stuff. I'm not going to spoil anything that happens or whatever, but I feel like I can at least say there's not a wall with a circle of knives in the movie.
Oh my gosh, you just ruined this movie for
I'm sorry.
People.
I'm trying. I'm not trying to do it. Listen, I feel like that would be weird if it was in there. So I feel like I need to tell people that it's not.
I was hoping that at some point Benoit Blanc would open a door and all of a sudden the knife chair throne would be there.
And then you realize you're back in the first movie.
Right. There was a time travel portal.
Right.
Similar to in The Matrix 2, where he just walks into like this abyss of white televisions.
Right.
And that is how Glass Onion goes.
But it's not.
We've lost all of our audience.
So now who's spoiling it, Kirk? I think now you just did, because you were saying you were hoping that this happened, which implies that it didn't. So there you go. Now we're even.
I was trying to get you out of the firing line.
You're falling on the sword for me.
Yes, you're welcome.
I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So yes, we are discussing Glass Onion, which is the second film in the Knives Out franchise. Now, here's what's tricky. This movie doesn't actually release widely until December 23rd when it releases on Netflix, because the Glass Onion Knives Out franchise is owned by Netflix now as of last year or 2 years ago or something like that. They purchased it. They did a limited release in theaters. It was only in theaters for 1 week, November 23rd through, I guess it's still in theaters, like through the 29th or something like that. And
Perhaps.
We went to go see it so that we could provide a spoiler-free review to you so that you would know our thoughts heading into its release on December 23rd on Netflix. Makes sense? Yes. I hope so.
All the sense.
If not, just leave. Just get out. If that didn't make sense, you can't stay. All right. Kirk, let's jump into this movie. Let's put on, the spoiler-free curtain is coming down now. We have to keep things really close to the vest here. We can't slip up. We have to be sharp.
We're already 0 for 2 so far this in the 4 short minutes that we've been recording. So I don't know.
Not count.
I mean, spoiler caution, I should say, from here on out, but we're going to try to not tell you anything.
I will not release this episode with spoilers, period. Will not happen.
Any spoiler that we say, Cameron will painstakingly go through and censor out.
No, but seriously, it would be so much work. So please, I'm begging you, and I'm begging me also. Let's not blow this. Let's do right by this.
I am guilty of rarely listening back to our episodes, and I just want to click on this in a couple of months and you just completely throw in unnecessary censorship throughout random pieces of factoids and anecdotes that I say throughout tonight's recording.
Just like places like inserting which late night person was it who did like unnecessary censorship? Like they would do it in Sesame Street and stuff like that.
I think it's Jimmy Kimmel. I do
Yeah.
think it's Jimmy Kimmel.
Like, do that where it makes it sound like you said something really bad when you actually didn't. That would be fun, but I'm lazy. See, that's the problem, is the lazy. There's a laziness factor that comes into play, and it would be so much work to do it. So don't count on it.
Okay, I won't count on it. But
All
I
right.
can count on tonight, the two of us talking about spoiler-free Glass Onion and Knives Out Mystery.
That's right.
That's happening.
And you are going to get us started, Kirk, with the synopsis of the film. So, Kirk, whenever you're ready.
I am. And to transport us into that world, I figured it was only authentic of me to practice a Southern accent, a Savannah accent. And I will also mention that I am not the dialect guru that my wife is, and I don't know what this is going to sound like. Sometimes I start an accent and it ends up going Irish, Indian, English, Manic. I mean, it could go anywhere. So just strap in, guys. You ready? To get in the right mood, I have to first say I declare before. So that is not part of the synopsis. I just want to make that very clear. Are you ready, Cam?
Yes.
I do declare, I declare. Here's the synopsis. An out-of-touch billionaire sends a cryptic puzzle to his closest friends for a weekend island getaway. The plot thickens when Benoit Blanc, world-renowned detective, is accidentally invited to this party. The lines blur between business and pleasure on this tropical murder mystery. Can you peel back the layers and keep your eye dry? You can try. In Glass Onion. In Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery.
Wow. Maybe we should just go eat some hay. We can lay by the bay and make things out of clay. We just may. What do you say, Kirk? That was pretty good, though. The accent, it was better than I was expecting.
I blacked out at the beginning. I don't know if I said my first sentence. Did you hear? Sends a cryptic puzzle to his closest friends. Yes,
that was the best part. It was beautiful. It was really
good.
It was well done. You were actually channeling him. I think that's why you blacked out.
Okay, cool. Great.
All right, so that sets the stage. It's if you've ever read or seen or heard many of the adaptations of And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, it's one of her most. It might be her most famous one. This is a very similar premise of like a bunch of people get invited to a place and then there's a murder. That's essentially what this is. Only in this case, they all know each other. So there's that layer, with the exception of Benoit Blanc, who of course is the detective. So, Kirk, let's start as we always do with the acting performances. I want to know who your "and the Oscar goes to" is.
And the Oscar for Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, goes to Edward Norton. I do declare he's the best one out there in this movie. You see all these big actors and their big starships and their monies and their spaceships and their yachts. Ed Norton, you are just a king of acting. I did not realize for a very long time just how good he was. There's probably a revelation for many people because you look at Edward Norton as an actor and you're like, it's just like a really skinny guy. Like, I feel like I was a really skinny guy until I was 18, and then, my metabolism dropped. So I just think that when you look at him, he's just like this just like kind of rat-like figure. And to that point, he plays a lot of rat-like people. It's like a 50-50 shot what you're going to get with Ed Norton. And what I feel so strongly too is, despite anything working against or for him, his character is not created upon his look. And that is what is so spectacular about him. No matter what role he takes, you immediately forget who Ed Norton is once he starts to open his mouth. And that type of transformative, magician in front of your eyes performance is so endearing. And I just got to say, it was difficult between Daniel Craig and Edward Norton here at the top for the Oscar goes to. But Ed Norton, you are just a marvelous, marvelous actor at your craft. And I could watch a supercut of all of your films just to like juxtapose them next to each other over and over and over and over again. I am forever in your debt for stealing your bag of tricks, watching little things you do and trying to then adapt them and run them through my filter and try to spit them out whenever I'm acting on stage. I just absolutely love what Ed Norton does. He gets it tonight.
I love that pick, and I'm very thankful for it because I thought really hard about going with Edward Norton. I think you know this, Kirk. I am a massive Ed Norton fan. I am a huge. I've been. I mean, even before I was really, really into movies, I would have named Ed Norton as one of my favorite actors. I have loved him in just about everything that he's done. I think he's fantastic, and I think everything you said was spot on about, you know, the way that he handled this character work. He had so many great monologues in this movie, and the fact that his appearance is not different. Like when you see him on the screen, you're like, that's Ed Norton. And then, you know, within the first 5 minutes, he's taken you somewhere else. You know, he's created a whole new character, and you totally forget, even as, you know, somebody who has closely followed his film career, I'm watching this and going, wow, he's created something totally unique here that feels very authentic and very, you know, he's so detail oriented in his approach. It's absolutely insane. His speech patterns, the way that he, I mean, even the way that he like stutters and stumbles over words is so specific to each character and sounds so, it has such flow. It's unbelievable. But I actually, you know, you said it was close between him and Daniel Craig. I thought it was a dead heat. I ended up playing against my personal biases and going with Daniel Craig's Benoit Blanc. I think the main thing that I will say, you know, this is a character that we've seen before, so you're not necessarily getting anything groundbreakingly new from Benoit Blanc, which is a good thing. You know, this is the same character that you will remember from Knives Out. It's exceptionally consistent, but the big thing here that is so key in this movie is that this movie features a pretty significant tone shift when compared with the last film. The last film does have comedy interlaced into it, but is overall a way more dramatic play on the murder mystery genre when compared to this. And so when, you know, when Rian Johnson's writing this movie and he's writing in the humor, he wrote in so much more humor into this film, and he casted it in such a way that this cast would be able to handle the more comedic and humorous elements of this film. And it is totally necessary for Benoit Blanc to be the vehicle for us to make it through that transition. His character and his performance is almost telling us it's okay to laugh here. I'm going to show you we're handling things in a different tone now than what you were used to in the first film, which, while silly in its own right, comes across as much more somber and stoic than this film, because this film is, I mean, I don't know, you could use any number of adjectives. It's zany, it's quirky, it's funny. It's a movie that leaned much harder into the humor of the film. And I liked that move, and I felt like it only worked because Benoit Blanc was there along with the ride, and Daniel Craig was in on the joke and was playing to that really well. So I give him a lot of credit for that. He could have just played super straight man on this, and it would have really messed with the vibe, but he didn't, and he helped make the tone of the movie really work. So it's really good writing on Rian Johnson's part, again, but it's also really, really good character work by Daniel Craig as Benoit Blanc again.
Beautiful. Our two leading men.
All right, let's talk about Scene Stealer. Kirk, huge cast, so many options. Where are you going to go for your Scene Stealer?
I'm throwing this to Miss Kate Hudson, the rom-com queen, and so much more than that. I mean, from beat one, she had me cackling. I don't think that there was anyone in our theater, Cam, laughing harder than me at Kate Hudson's absolute ditziness, like pure stupidity. It was so perfect. It was so pure. Like there wasn't a show on it. Kate Hudson really locked into what is the dumbest person and what are the dumbest things that they could believe, and what path would they get there? That's the key right there. It's not that they're just stupid. It's the fact that they are thinking of whatever's put in front of them, that they are thinking in a completely different path than anyone else would logically. And that's what she took with this character. I think they call her Birdie. Birdie J is her character name, Kate Hudson. And just I love playing the idiot. I love playing the buffoon on stage because there is so much freedom to it. And there is also a responsibility that you have to structure those moments where they hit at different levels. So like you hit at a 1 where it's just like something blasé, not a big deal. And then you have to crank things up and you have to build a dynamic. So sometimes you're at a 9 in the next moment, or you drop it down to a 4 to alleviate the how silly you just went. And that kind of dance is something that's kind of instinctual. You can learn it. There are mechanics to it, but ultimately there are people in this world like Kate Hudson that can see it and that can emulate it so well. And I absolutely loved this character for her. It didn't seem like a regurgitated character that she's done before. And I don't think we'll ever see this person again, but I really, really, really loved how easily she slipped into this, how completely unforced she was, and how absolutely hilarious she was from the moment we met her till the moment we left her when the screen went to the credits.
Yeah, I love that pick too. I mean, I think that was definitely a consideration for me. I mean, we saw this together, and we had multiple other family members with us. And I think like 5-6 minutes into the movie, my wife leans over and says, Kate Hudson is doing an awesome job. And I was like, yes, she is. She's totally killing it. This was one of the roles that was kind of publicized, that other people had auditioned for it, like Kaylee Cuoco, and lost out to Kate Hudson. And when you see her on the screen and you see her as Birdie J making this come together, you're like, yep, makes sense. Totally clicks, totally works. And she's just out there killing it. So I love that pick. I am going in a different direction with my scene stealer, and I'm going with Janelle Monáe. Janelle Monáe, who I think it's really unfair when people are really talented at multiple different things, like being really powerful vocalists and then also really good actors. 2 of which are in this film, Leslie Odom Jr. and Janelle Monáe. Unfair. Save some talent for the rest of us, why don't you jerks? Yeah. It's just not okay. I think you should. I mean, I love it, but I also hate it. So, but I'm going with Janelle Monáe, who in this film has a really tough task because her character is shrouded in intrigue for the the first half of the movie. And so there's a lot of games being played with her character. I have to be careful here. There's a lot of different things that are going on around her character, and she has to, with the help of director Ryan Johnson and her fellow castmates, really balance the exact, you talked about dynamics and levels to things. She has to really balance what she's revealing, at what times, in what way. There's lots of nonverbals, tons of nonverbals, which is something that she excels at. And I thought she just did a fantastic job. I mean, it's really as simple as that. I thought that she gave a performance that was a true scene stealer in the sense of when she was on the screen, you couldn't keep your eyes off of her because she was doing so much from a nonverbal perspective with her eyes, telling a story with her eyes, which is something she's really good at. She just has it going, man. I mean, she was in Moonlight. She was great in that film. She was in Homecoming on Amazon Prime Video. Really liked her in that. And I just think that she's done a really good job here. So Janelle Monáe, excellent work. I mean, what else is there to say? Great job.
There's nothing else to say about her. That's it. We're going to cut you off.
Yeah, that's fine. Please do, because I think if I continue to speak, it'll just get dumber. Because it really is simple, and so I should just let it be simple. All right, let's talk about this production, Kirk. Let's talk about Showstopper and then Director's Shoes. Showstopper is the thing you liked the most, the thing that stuck out to you the most in this film. What do you got?
I'm going to say my showstopper in a similar way to how we discussed the knife wall, in that, there are certain things that will happen in this movie that may or may not have happened in the first one. I hope I don't get myself into deep water here. There, in the first one, there is a little bit of like miniature reveals, I should say, of things that we didn't see because we weren't looking for it. And in this one, it is even more masterfully executed in a way in which that doesn't trick the audience. It never shows you something that didn't happen. It never lies to you. What you see is fact. And then it goes through and tells you the story again. So it's very similar to the first in that aspect. In any kind of murder mystery, you're going to get that kind of vibe. And I really appreciated how this one, the level that it cranked up to, was just so incredibly well. It's words are important. It was very well done. And I was pretty in awe of how intricate it was, but mostly that they didn't have to trick the audience or retroactively change what we had already seen in this same film in order to fit whatever narrative they wanted, in order to keep us guessing at who the villain was in this film as well. So that is my very specific but vague showstopper for today.
I like it. I mean, you said something there that is a part of what I'm going to talk about in Showstopper as well, but I want to call out especially, which is not tricking the audience, or I think of it as the reader, because I'm someone who loves detective fiction, and even the best detective fiction, noir type writers fall into the trap of using gimmicks and tricks to make sure that their reader cannot figure out the mystery, that it actually would be impossible for them to do so because they were missing a crucial piece of information. I mean, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle has done it. Agatha Christie has done it. There have been plenty of them who have fallen into the trap of being sneaky little guys and withholding information. And it's not cool, and it's not fun as a fan of the genre to feel like you were deceived. The whole point and the whole appeal of the whodunit detective genre is trying to put the pieces together yourself and seeing if the conclusion that you come to is correct or what you got wrong or whatever. And most of the time, if it's done well, you are still wrong because there is just something that has eluded you. But it can't be that you were wrong because you were missing a piece of information that nobody had. So you're exactly right. It has to be above board. Everything has to, the cards have to be on the table. No trickery, nothing. But my showstopper really, it should probably come as no surprise that it's going to come down to the writing. I think with the first film and with this film, you can't miss the unbelievable dialogue that Rian Johnson writes. He does a great job, and in this movie, it's the same thing. But I'm actually going with the story, and it's the level of detail in this mystery is so much higher than the last one. I think, Kirk, this is essentially the same kind of thing that you were saying, but specifically the mystery itself. While I still found it predictable, I will admit, I still feel like I knew who did what early on in the film, and I even said, I leaned over to my wife and said, hey, this is what's going on. I didn't know exactly how, and there were so many layers to the onion in this thing that were so creative, and it's actually more so that rather than the layers themselves, the creativity of each layer of the mystery was what made it so fun to kind of unpeel. And even though I found myself in a position where I'm like, okay, I think this is who it is, and it ended up being, that, it was still a really good time to figure out exactly why that was the correct answer and what specific things were going on. So I give Rian Johnson a ton of credit for not just writing the story and saying, okay, here's who it's going to be and here's how we're going to get there, but going a level deeper to say, how creative can we get with each of these steps? If we know that we need to have this thing to happen, what's the most creative way we can tell that story and why? And what piece of information can we drop early in the movie that people are going to totally miss that will make the payoff that much more fun? So I give Rian Johnson a ton of credit. I think there's no doubt the dude loves doing this and has a total handle on the genre. And this movie absolutely screamed Agatha Christie at multiple points, as did its predecessor. So he's totally a fan of the genre, and I think he's having a total blast. And when it's a passion project and it's something that's fun, it's that much better. And I think that he's just on another level with it.
Beautiful.
All right.
Just beautiful.
Let's go into the other side, Kirk. Let's talk director's shoes.
It's time to talk about those director's shoes. I would have to say that my biggest criticism of this film is that in a very similar way to Thor 4, much hotly debated project, we have some similarities in reality to absurdity. In this film, this does not make or break this movie, and it's very, very short-lived. This takes place during COVID, and then it just doesn't matter. It's a very strange choice, and when you have that to where this sometimes ends up throughout the film, not just at any particular point, but it rises and falls throughout the absurdity level. That absurdity level you can't really get there when you're completely grounded in reality. COVID wasn't a made up construct like some may believe. It actually happened to every person on this earth. And because of this, you can't then take the story to the creative places that it wanted to go. I feel like if it would have just ejected that entirely, then this would have been a full 1.5 higher than I will give it in my final notes and scoring. But the fact that it was included, it did nothing to enhance or take away from any character. The characters were so well written, they didn't need that kind of backdrop at all. And then I would have been able to come along for the ride of the full scope of these characters. I don't know why it was injected. I really don't know why. And that's my biggest complaint against this and any other property that has been written in the past 3 years, with the exception of Joseph Gordon-Levitt's Mr. Corman on Apple TV Plus. There's no other intellectual property creation that I've seen that has dealt with COVID appropriately. And again, it's short-lived in this film. It will not destroy people like it destroyed me, but it's completely superfluous, and I wish it wasn't in there.
Yeah, I think it's hard. I think for whatever reason, I feel like filmmakers feel like they have to include that, be like with recent films, to show that like they are aware of it and lived it. But it's like, it adds no value. It adds no value, and we all know about it. And I think that film in general is sort of supposed to take place in a different world. I mean, this doesn't take place in our world. There's a made-up company. There's made-up people and celebrities and all kinds of stuff. In the first movie, there's a made-up, book empire. So it's kind of like reality adjacent. So if you have the choice to make it reality adjacent, why don't you leave the pandemic out of it? I agree. Right. It's not something that really super bugged me, but I was also like, okay, but why? But why? So I get that. For my director shoes, I'm gonna go with the fact that I felt like this movie. It how do I phrase this? I probably should have phrased this out before I decided to dive into this sentence because I've had this idea in my head, but I have no idea how to really word it.
Jump right in. We'll censor it all, and no one will ever hear it if you don't like it.
We're gonna censor it out. No, I think
singing censor.
I think for me, it comes down to the themes, and it's not really like the lack of themes, but it just felt like this movie like left something on the table in terms of its ambition. Like there is one overarching theme in this movie, which is that like, you know, what money and power does to people, which first of all is just like, how many times has that been done? 1,000 bajillion gazillion times. We see it play out in real life all the time. Everybody's painfully aware of what money and power does to people. And the whole sort of premise of this movie is like, oh, look at all these rich people and all the issues they have because of their wealth and whatever. And so I felt like it left something on the table, whereas I felt like the first movie, and of course it's not totally fair to just compare them to each other, but I really did feel like the first film in the franchise had a bunch of like micro themes kind of spread throughout it that made it really fun, where you could, every time you walk through it, you could look at one character, their motives, their specific perspective, and you could find a new thought that Rian Johnson had while they were making this. Like, why did they make this character this way? Why do they have these motivations? What is the theme that's built into that specific character? Which I found to be really fun about that movie, and why it gets better and better with each watch, in my opinion. But in this movie, they all are kind of like, even though the characters are super well written, they're the like theme built into each character, and the reason for being is sort of the same across the board. There's like the one thing that unites them all, which is that they are drawn to power and money as a vehicle to power. And so I just felt like that was kind of, I don't know, left a little bit on the table. It's like, why even include it if it's not going to be something rich that we can really sink our teeth into? And maybe that's something that like I'll find more as I watch it again. But I felt like this was kind of void of any meaningful theme. It doesn't stop the movie from being a super good time, and certainly you don't have to have tons of theming, but I think you have to choose the route that you want to go. And I didn't feel like Rian Johnson chose a specific direction that he wanted to go in terms of the messaging, other than just like, rich people suck. And it's like, yeah, totally, right? Rich people, the worst. We can all get behind that. So I thought that was a little lackluster, but that's about it.
Well, I say, Cam, that was quite eloquent and relatable. That was wonderful. Foghorn Leghorn here, just tying in for the final thoughts. I kicked Kirk out of the studio, and I'd just like to share his notes that he thinks on Glass Onion Knives Out Mystery.
Let's do it.
Let me lay it in here. This movie is fun. Rian Johnson did not pay me to be here, but I must say, this is a very fun, a very entertaining, a very mysterious, a very realistic, a very hyperbole, silly, quick My Dog Skip movie that you can just come on in and it'll feel like it happened in the blink of an eye. I do declare that comparing it to its first predecessor is unnecessary when you talk about sequels and prequels. Can I get an amen for the Star Wars sequels and prequels comparisons? But I must say, Glass Onion falls just 0.1 below its predecessor because of my true heart-to-heart feelings. But do not leave it up to me. Make sure you go see this movie no matter what. This movie gets a 7.1 out of 10 kernels, ladies and gentlemen.
Ooh, 7.1. Okay. All right.
Now, let me hear your Southern Savannah
No,
accent, Cam.
I will not, but I like that score. When I looked back at our scores, so Knives Out 1, I gave it an 8.4, you gave it a 7.2. I didn't re-listen to that episode, but I think our overarching theme was that it was too predictable of a film. I don't remember what your thoughts were. That was my main thought. Like the main thing that really took the air out of my bubble in Knives Out 1 was like, I felt like the guy who was the red herring and was like, okay, that's the dude, that's the murderer, was the person that ended up being it. And so then It's like, oh, I was wrong for the right reasons. I don't, like I wasn't actually wrong. It was just like, well, it can't be him because that's just way too obvious. And then it was, and it's like, oh, so maybe that's Rian Johnson like subverting our whole red herring framework. I don't know. But that was the main reason for my score. So we'll see. I'm actually going to be close to my original score too, Kirk. So we're not moving the needle too much. So with Knives Out, or Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, I have to say that the tone shift was a welcome one for me. I actually had a really good time with this movie. I enjoyed the dynamic contrast that it has when compared to the first one. This one is much more live. Things feel like they're happening in real time. Things feel dynamic. They feel quick. It's witty. It's funny. And I think that it's just a perfect fit for the genre. And I thought that he really wrote it in such a way to make it just a really great time, as Kirk was kind of saying. I still find it too predictable. I wish I'm waiting for Rian Johnson to give me a mystery that really knocks my socks off and delivers something that is totally that floors me. Maybe my expectations are too high there. I don't really know. I'll have to listen to other people and hear if they think it was predictable as well. But I'm okay with it. Like I said, the detail in the story was so much fun that even though I had a pretty good idea of who I thought was responsible, every single layer was packed with so much fun, so much detail, and each character was just a blast to spend time with. They each got their time in the spotlight to give their little monologues and have their exchanges, and man, what a cast. What a cast. I think the first cast is probably technically superior in terms they were asked to do a much more dramatic thing, and this cast had much more freedom and were allowed to be a lot like quirkier, zanier, funnier. So it just depends on where you fall on that spectrum. But for me, it totally worked, and I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to watch it again on December 23rd when it hits Netflix. I'm giving it an 8.6 out of 10, which is 0.2 higher than Knives Out. So,
yeah, look here, boy. That's very nice.
You just call me boy.
Well, in Savannah, we call people boys when they do kind things. So good job.
Okay, when they do kind things. Well, I'll have to take your word for it there, Mr. Leghorn.
Thank you.
But yeah, that's Knives Out, man. We ended up pretty close to our original scores on the first film, so it feels like you and I are just like, we've made our opinion on this franchise, and there is not much that is going to change it. But still waiting for that mystery that's going to totally knock our socks off. I know that there's going to be more Knives Out on the way. Somebody suggested on Twitter that Rian Johnson, for the cast of Knives Out 3, just does the entire cast of The Last Jedi just to troll everybody. So it'd be like Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, Laura Dern.
Yes.
That could be a good time. So
Mark Hamill. He is actually the murderer.
Mark Hamill, Adam Driver. Honestly, could be a really good time. So let's hope that happens. But that is our spoiler-free review of Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. The film will be dropping, as I said, on Netflix on December 23rd, so just in time for Christmas. I believe the 23rd is a Friday, and depending on how your company does hours, you should be off. That should be like the company Christmas Eve day. So hopefully you're off if you're in that situation. and you get a chance to sit at home with some hot cocoa and one of those cozy sweaters that Chris Evans and Ana de Armas wear in the first movie, and watch Knives Out, Glass Onion. So, Kirk, any final words before we sign off?
I just think that this has been a wonderful time, Cam, and I appreciate you bringing me in to review this as your special guest, Kirk's alternate associated personality.
Perfect. Well, that's great. Thanks for being here, and thank you all for being here and for watching and or listening to this episode. We want to thank you so much for that. We'll keep you posted on what is to come. We'll also give our executive producer, Ryan Spriggs, a big thank you, as well as his band, Rhetoric, who created the original music that you are hearing now. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you all next week.
Talk to you then.